He was born a snake handler, and he'll die a snake handler. You're listening to Game Points with Matthew Ross on TSN 690.
Game Points with Matthew Ross. Final segment of the show. We're joined momentarily by someone who can comment on the NFL draft and, of course, one of the big stories, Michael Sam getting drafted by the Rams in the 7th round. Mo, before we go to our guest, I wanted you to share your quick take on the skill set of Michael Sam. Some saying, there's prejudice, and that's why he went to the 7th. You say that's not the case, and he probably went where he should have.
No, look, Michael Sam, I'm happy for him that he's in the NFL, gets an opportunity to play and realize his football dreams as a kid here. But, look, he can't play in the 3-4 as an edge linebacker. He has stiff hips, which means he can't really cover in open space. As a 4-3 defensive end now, can he play and rush the passer consistently speaking here, or is he a situational player where he comes on for the 3rd down and plays 10 plays a game? His key, though, is that he has to make special teams. That's where he'll make his mark as an NFL player and then earn his way up the ladder to be a part of a rotation with St. Louis or whoever has him at the end of the year.
And you said the Combine hurt him.
Combine definitely hurt him, and his pro day was much better, but the Combine did hurt him. But let's not forget, Coney Ely, his teammate at Mizzou, who went a lot higher in the NFL draft, garnered a lot of double teams during his time at Missouri, so he got a lot of his sacks through one-on-one battles with the offensive linemen out there. But again, he'll earn his mark through special teams. If he makes that, he'll get more playing time in the rotation.
All right. Let us now bring in our next guest. He wrote an article, of course, on the drafting of Michael Sam by the Rams. You can check him out on twitter.com/Ralph D Russo AP from the Associated Press. It is Ralph D Russo. Hey, Ralph, how you doing?
I'm good, guys. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it. In terms of covering this story, is it fair to say that it's one of the most unique ones that you've had in your career?
Oh, without question. And I find it fascinating on so many levels, and partially it's because of what you were just talking about on a football level. It's very, Michael Sam as a prospect is a flawed prospect. But because this story brings in a lot of non-football fans, it's hard to explain to them that, yes, you could be the SEC Defensive Player of the Year and not be good enough to be a highly drafted player. In fact, I was just looking through a list of guys who weren't drafted, and there are All-Americans and star players in their conferences. There's a very comparable player to Michael Sam, Jackson Jeffcoat from the Texas Longhorns, who's also an All-American defensive end, was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, similar size, similar height. He went undrafted. So you have the element of this football side of it, but again, because he's gay and the sort of social side of it, which is also really fascinating. It's hard to sort of explain to people why yes, he might not go as high as you think he would go, but also the side of it that, I'm sure that there were teams that were a little afraid of bringing in the media circus. I have no doubt that there might have been some teams out there who thought, you know what, we don't really need the hassle for this. And I think it's really interesting, the fact that it's opened the door to a different way of sort of looking at the NFL draft, right? I mean, we certainly never saw a scene like we saw last night when he was drafted.
And that, again, is another interesting aspect, which is, of course, whenever someone's drafted, they're with their family, their friends, their girlfriends, and in this case, their boyfriend. And for you, as someone who's trying to cover that story for such a wide audience that the Associated Press has, they must have been something that you really had to think about in terms of wording it and depicting what was going to be in your article.
Yeah, listen, we live in a different age as far as media, and I understand that before or after somebody reads my article, they're also going to see it on TV, right? But nonetheless, I think it's important for me in writing something, even though, again, there's going to be some video to go with it, so to speak, that I explain or sort of give some details as to what happened to convey the moment. And to me, that scene where he kisses his boyfriend and the boyfriend has an arm around him, and I know you took an issue with the fact that I sort of described how the boyfriend was rubbing his arm as he was talking on the phone. And to me, it was a really interesting detail that sort of brought home the intimacy of the moment. And, people always tell you when you're coming up in this business, you're writing stories about people, and you want to sort of convey the emotions and the moment, and again, fill in some details that maybe not everybody notices, but that really are strong details that bring across like what is really going on in that moment. And I just thought like the boyfriend sort of rubbing his arm that way was a really poignant part of that scene. Yeah, how he was sort of comforting him, and Michael was on the phone and really couldn't wait to get off the phone to celebrate with his boyfriend and with his family. So it was a really interesting scene. And again, for me, what I try to do is write that scene for somebody who maybe won't see it, and then maybe also keep in mind for the person who does see it what they might not notice in that scene.
Yeah, and
maybe it was too much detail. Honestly, maybe I can see why maybe somebody thought maybe it was too much detail and it took away from the accomplishment of him being drafted.
Well, that was my take on it. It didn't bother me on a human level. I just thought maybe it was a situation where and that's the power of Twitter today, isn't it? That you and I are chatting today on air about it because it was something I sent out there. I took exception to the fact that it wasn't the emphasis wasn't on the accomplishment as the athlete would like it to be, but like you said, you open yourself up to it when there's cameras there and you're with your boyfriend and all that kind of stuff is out there.
And part of this news story, though, what makes it so compelling is beyond the football